2023 was 100%, I think it was the hardest year of my life. I've never felt more equipped to handle a tough period of time because I've done a lot of work on myself over the past probably 6-ish years with therapy and all sorts of other self improvement with business and other stuff. But it was really hard. So there's like, I stopped doing the podcast before things got really crazy in my life, but I'm glad that I did because I didn't have any space for it.
LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down. LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down. LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down. LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down.
All right, so I'm gonna probably use this as like just an additional therapy session. I do therapy once a week, and I feel like I just need an extra session this week. But here we are. So we're back. We're back. I don't know if I'm gonna even publish this as an episode of LawFlip. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I know I've been wanting to put out more content. It's been basically, I want to say, a year and a half since I've done a podcast episode. I did 85 episodes of LawFlip, the podcast, and I really enjoyed it. It was really good for my brand. People still come up to me all the time and say like they loved it and when am I doing more, and I never really even like I just assumed that like when I put a podcast out, like I don't really think about who. I got into this mode of just putting content out and not worrying about it, and hopefully it would be helpful. And I did it purely as a marketing thing. People used to think like, oh, do you still have a job or do you just podcast? And I don't know. I don't know why people would think that I could get away with having podcasting be my full time job living in LA with now 3 kids. But yeah, no, I was only spending like 1 to 3 hours a week on the podcast, and I assembled a team to try to make it easier so that I was able to do it. But at a certain point, it did become a lot, and I was just like exhausted from it. And so, also, it's just been a crazy past year. 2023 was 100%. I think it was the hardest year of my life. I've never felt more equipped to handle a tough period of time because I've done a lot of work on myself over the past probably 6-ish years with therapy and all sorts of other self improvement with business and other stuff. But it was really hard. So there's like, I stopped doing the podcast before things got really crazy in my life, but I'm glad that I did because I didn't have any space for it. By the way, my name is Benjy Smith, and I'm an attorney here in Los Angeles. I'm licensed in New York and California. I never really introduced myself in the other podcasts. I would like give little bits and pieces. One of the things I would talk about a lot in the podcast, for anybody that listened, was my dad. I would be like, my dad has this saying about this and this saying about that. And I worked with my dad for 10 years as a lawyer at his firm with my brother. The kind of the big few events that I'm sort of referring to in terms of why it was so hard was my dad got sick on April 12th, or at least that's when we found out that he got sick. He ultimately passed in October, and it was for sure the hardest 7 months. There were so many things that happened during that time, including my beautiful third son being born on April 16th. And so there was just a lot of juggling between that and just life. Like, I was always happy with my life and my family unit, and still thank God am. But I just had like just very big external challenges that were happening with my dad and some other stuff that I just like had wasn't like really directly related to my wife and kids. It was just external stuff and not even related to work that took me away from being able to just like live a regular life. And with my dad, the diagnosis that he had, we knew he was in trouble, but he was the hardest working man that I've ever known, and he was also the biggest fighter I've ever come across. So what most people thought was going to be a very short, like few week or few month bout, he extended, and it was hard to figure out what his actual diagnosis was. We went to all the best doctors. One of my brothers was like the sort of like the chief doctor in charge. He's a lawyer, but he was just figuring out everything. He was figuring out what doctor to go to. He was just becoming a doctor on his own. We were all working together as a unit with my mom and both my brothers, but one of my brothers just stepped up and was just like crushing it. And then the rest of us just worked together the best we could. But it was just really hard. And there were so many times where we thought he was going to pass. And then he was at a hospital that was far away. And I just had a baby. And I also shared on the podcast that I got divorced in 2020, which was definitely a challenging time. And then I got remarried. Just my wife, with everything that was going on, she was just unbelievable, so supportive. And with our son being born so close to my dad being diagnosed, I just wasn't able to be uh, as present as I would have liked to have been. And now here we are, fast forward. It's a really weird time because I'm not in a like there's no crisis, so to speak. And there were several sort of crises. I don't know the way to say it, crisis or crises. I should know that. But there's nothing really pressing as in terms of an emergency right now. I just am kind of living my normal, crazy, hardworking, spending time with the family life. And it's really beautiful to just be able to place where I could even like think that recording this is an option, and I'm not running somewhere. I'm not driving to a hospital an hour away. But it's also kind of like weird. Like you get used to being in this crisis kind of like trauma mode for a long time, and then you're out of it and it just feels weird. You feels like something's like off almost. But I'm still in a grieving phase. I probably always will be. My dad was such a big factor in my life, always will be. He had so many rules for everything, so many sayings for everything. Everywhere I look, everywhere I do anything, I always know what he would have done in that circumstance. And that was one of the things that my brother said when he was sick. It was kind of cool to tell him, like my brother told my dad, that what's really cool is that, you know, we never have to wonder what my dad would have said in a certain circumstance. We knew his position on pretty much everything. So he had a large set of rules that he lived by and he wanted us to live by. And anyway, to tell you a little bit about myself, for anybody that doesn't know, my name is Benjy Smith. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I went to Jewish day school, and then I went to like a lot of different sort of things in my life that made my network kind of expand naturally by way of me doing that. Like I went to Jewish day school, then I went to a public school in Calabasas, then I went to a public school in Woodland Hills, and then I went to University of Arizona for 2 years to party. It was like had nothing to do with school. It was just complete 2 years of like basically rock and roll living, which I don't know how I'm going to deal with my kids going to college if they want to go anywhere like what Arizona was like, because it was just nuts. And then I transferred to USC after 2 years. And then I went to Loyola Law School in LA. And then I went to, like, I really wanted to live in New York. They let me do a sort of a visiting, like, year in Brooklyn Law School. So that's where I finished. And then also back at USC, I actually did a semester at Australia National University, which is like a really good university in Canberra, and traveled in Australia, which was awesome. When I got out of law school in New York, I took the bar there, which is like one of the hardest bar exams in the country, and I passed, thankfully. And there's kind of a crazy story. When I bar exam, I couldn't log. I like went to my family's house back in California to get the bar exam results, and like my brother slept back at my childhood home, and my parents and my brothers woke up with me early in the morning because it was New York results and it was coming out like at 9 a.m. Eastern. When the results came out, like I couldn't log on to the website. And then I basically reached out to I saw people posting on Facebook, oh, like I passed the bar, I passed the bar. And it was so frustrating because I saw other people getting the results and I couldn't log in. So I actually sent the my social security number and information to my friend, who ultimately like wrote back congrats, and I found out that I passed. But after that happened, I then took the California bar, which is like one of the other hardest bars in the country. And my dad knew about like the last time that like it was so hard to sign in on New York, that he asked me for, I think he like had my sign in information for the California bar. So I started for the bar, and I take it, and same thing. We're all at my parents' house, my brothers and my parents, and I log in the information. It basically, if you typed in any information other than somebody who passed the bar, it said the same thing. And you could be a stranger and type it in, and you would still get the same result as somebody who also failed. So what happened is, it says like your name doesn't appear on the pass list. So when the California bar exam came out and we're all sitting there and I put my information in, it says, your name does not appear on the pass list. And I went into like a full on meltdown for the next few hours. I was so miserable. And my dad calls me like 2 hours later, and he's like, "You're not going to fucking believe this. You passed the fucking bar exam." And my brother was like, "I'm not sure if he's right, but I think he might be right. I think you typed in the username and password wrong." So that was the other crazy story that happened with the bar. I basically found out that I passed after having hours of thinking that I failed. And so after, and sorry, I don't have that much juice right now. It's just, I'm just coming off of like this crazy period. So I don't have that much, I have energy, but I'm just getting back into this idea of putting out content. In any event, after law school, I start working with I briefly worked at my dad's firm, and then I went out and worked with one of my brother's friends doing actually, my first thing that I did out of law school, before I came back to California, was I worked with one of my good friend's brothers and like his crew at an internet marketing company. One of the first, and my good friend, Aaron, and one of the first things we did, we knew the Kardashians, and we did a teeth whitening deal for the Kardashians. This is back in 2008, and I always remembered how like good they were or Chris was at negotiating, because it was first started as a deal for Kim, and then she expanded it to Courtney and Chloe, and then after that it was like, okay, but Mama's got to get a piece. Like Chris then got a percentage, and but that was I was doing this internet marketing company thing, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to work like full time as a lawyer. I kind of wanted to get into this internet world, but at the time, I was kind of lured back out to California because there was some cool cases that were going on back in California. And I ended up moving back to California, taking the bar. And then I started working at my dad's firm, but it was just crazy. They were involved in like these really high stakes litigation. I was just put right in the middle of it. And then I got this opportunity to go do transactional slash litigation work at my friend Eli's firm. And I did that for a year, and it was really great. Love him. Got a great experience. Then I went back to my dad's firm and worked there for about 10 years and learned a lot, did a lot. It's hard to work with your dad and brother, but I mean, I'm happy I did it, but I was always kind of looking for a different way. I would like didn't really love the like working as a traditional lawyer, and I think I was just always trying to find my way to being able to like really find my way to my professional happiness, which I was having a hard time doing. Like I was finding little bits and pieces that made me happy, but I just couldn't see myself doing it like that for the rest of my life. And so I think I was just always like thinking about different ways to do something different. So then in 2013, right before my first son was born, by the way, I was married. So then I got married in 2011. And then I had my first son February 8th, 2014. And right before that, I launched with my friend Aaron, who I worked with at the first startup or the first internet marketing company in New York. He came to me and he was telling me about an idea about like these tailored sweatpants. And so we worked together and created this company called Sweat Taylor, all while I was working. And we launched on Kickstarter, and I think we raised like $65,000. And I wasn't ready to take that journey yet on that thing. So I ended up like giving up my interest in the company and walked away from it, but it was a really good experience. And the company still lives on to this day, Sweat Taylor. They spell it differently now. Yeah. So all along the way I was always thinking, and then I was like, okay, maybe I want to get an in-house job at tech, because a lot of my friends growing up in New York were all in like internet type stuff. So I then went to interview at all these tech companies, and probably the furthest I got was at Twitter. And Twitter flew me up. This is like, I don't know if it was like 15 or 16, 2015 or 2016. They flew me up to San Francisco, and they had I interviewed with like 18 people, and it was so cool. I got to see the like Twitter headquarters, and it was a very cool experience. And every single person was like, "You're getting this job 100%. Like, we love you." Da da da. And then the next day, the company announced like a freeze on hiring and layoffs. So that didn't happen. It kept going. And then with my professional journey, I started to listen. I was like, where am I going to get the inspiration to sort of do things differently? Because most of the lawyers I know, they do it like this. This is like the traditional way to do it. And it just seemed like so many people that I knew were unhappy practicing law in the way that they were doing it. And I saw that my friends that were doing other businesses, like they were just seemed like something that was more appealing to me. So I started listen. I like read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I started listening to my friend Dee's podcast called Group Chat. I started doing things that I would just say yes to doing all different types of things. I would be open to trying things with with no expectation, and then like if it worked, great. If it didn't, move on from it. And that's probably been one of the biggest things that has helped me over the past, I would say, 5+ years. Eventually, I sort of got the chutzpah to leave and start my own thing. And so I started my own firm with a friend in January 2019. At the same time, I wanted to create a different type of marketing for the firm. And we did employment, personal injury, and class actions. And I didn't really want to post about like, oh, I have these great results, and I have this experience and this trial experience. Like, whenever I see that stuff, or whenever I see real estate agents post about like how many houses they've sold, it just wasn't that interesting to me. And I remember this other person that was around tangentially, who ran a clothing line. He kept putting out content that wasn't even directly related to his company, and that helped like raise people's awareness about him. And then his brand was like always blowing up. So I was like, it would be interesting if I just did a podcast that didn't directly talk about what I did, didn't really even directly talk about myself that much, like interviewed people, talked about topics, stuff like that. And then hopefully people might find it interesting, and then like call me when they have a legal problem, because they either know that I'm a lawyer, or they would maybe look into what I do. And of course, I dropped like legal tips of the week here or there and stuff like that. But it was really like a soft sell, and I am kind of a soft sell. Like, I don't like when it comes to my firm, I don't hard sell anybody. I try not to, because I want people that want to work with me. I don't really want to convince people to work with me. So that was why I started the podcast and doing content. I was like, this is the only way would feel like excited and comfortable doing content. I didn't feel comfortable just bragging about myself and stuff like that. So that's what I did. I did that podcast for over a few years, and then right as we were starting, we got some really cool guests. We got politicians, business people, lawyers. We thought it was really great and fun, and I for sure got a return on my investment, although it was scary. Like, we put a lot of money into it, and we didn't know what was going to happen. Like, we didn't make a lot of money just directly on the podcast itself, but the business that came out of it was really cool, and the connections and the networking and all that stuff. It definitely paid off, and it still does to this day. Then COVID hit, and then my divorce happened, which was, I had 2 kids with my first wife. So obviously there's all the challenges that go with that. there's, I have a lot of pressure that I put on myself to be the best person I can, the best dad I can, and that's what I focus on. That's what I focus on all day, every day. How do I do better? How do I become a better person? How do I become the best dad every day? And that's what I work on. We're all work in progress. So I get divorced. I'm not trying to gloss over that, but I'm not going to get into the like details of that because it shouldn't be broadcast. I mean, I think a lot of people gave me a lot of credit for dealing with it like so well and for sort of like moving through it and then getting to the next stage and continuing work and meeting my future wife who became my wife and sort of moving on with my life. I think people give me a lot of credit, but it hasn't been easy, but it's been beautiful. And I think that time was crazy. COVID, we started doing the podcast and then we moved to remote episodes. And I also, at that time, as like the divorce was starting, my friend Sasha hit me up, and it was when nobody was really going out and doing anything during COVID. But I was kind of facing a crisis at that time. And he was like, just come out to UCLA and let's exercise. So I go out and I've been on a attempt at health journey on and off my whole life, gone up and down with weight, had my ups and downs with my relationship with exercise. He's this like Division 1 athlete, good looking kid who's like 6'6" and one of my favorite people. He's crazy like me and we have a great time together. But we go to UCLA and we had this idea to say like, hey, let's create a workout group that's like focused on entrepreneurial stuff. And like we would meet and then at the end we were just like, this is what we're going to do every Sunday, we're going to do it. And it really turned into a pretty huge thing. And we would have 10, 20, 50, 75 people then show up to UCLA, and it became a company called Motion LA. And then that's still running to this day. It's an amazing experiential marketing company that Sasha and Jason run full time, and I help wherever I can. But I am mostly focused on my firm, Smith Law. After a few years of working with my partner, right after I right after I left my dad's firm, I went out like completely on my own. And that's sort of where I am. I've had my firm now on my own for, I think, 2.5 years, something like that. It's amazing. I'm so happy to have my firm, so grateful for my team, and so grateful for all the different lawyers and people that we work with, and the clients are just excellent. I love representing employees. It's just a blessing. Like work is just I really thankfully found something that I really enjoy doing. Yeah, super blessed. I've also been working on this software called LawFlip, not the podcast, but a app that allows lawyers to refer business to each other. So if you want more cases, you can get more cases on there from other lawyers, or if you have cases that you don't want to handle, you can refer those out. We've been heating up. We have a ton of users. We have some competitors, some interesting competitors, some that I know that entered into the space after they certainly knew of my product, and some that are larger companies that are doing it. But we believe in the product. So if you ever want to get more cases or refer cases out, you can check us out at lawflip.com. Again, that's different than the podcast LawFlip. And people always ask me like, how do you do all these different things? And one is obviously hard work. Two is put together good teams and good processes and just hustle. That's what we try to do. And it's not like they're all thriving the way I want them to be. They're certainly all a work in progress, but we're giving it our best shots. So here we are with the Smith Law legal tip. So you're an employee and you have a disability and you want your employer to accommodate your disability. There are at least 3 times that your employer should do this. One, when you make a personal request. So if let's say you have a disability and you need a special keyboard, they should provide one for you. Number two, an employer's observation. So if your employer knows or somebody points it out to them that you're struggling with mobility, um, they may have to suggest to you a ramp or an accessible workstation. So that's when the employer knows, either they visually see the disability or what appears to be a disability, or somebody points it out to them. Number three, a post leave scenario. So imagine you're returning from medical leave and you need a modified schedule to accommodate ongoing therapy sessions. That's a situation where they understand from your doctor, from your medical provider, that you have a need for accommodation, and that's another opportunity where they can accommodate your needs. These are moments when your employer should step in. If you're facing such situations and need guidance, call us at Smith Law at 818-839-9700 or visit us at dialbenjy.com. Your rights matter, and we're here to help. I think what I've been saying is that I never had a harder year than last year, but I never was more equipped to handle it with just all the work I've been doing on myself for years with therapy and just self improvement. I never really went down like a rabbit hole of destructive behavior. And I'm pretty proud of that. I just, historically, I like, if this happened at a different time in my life, who knows? But like right now, I just feel like I'm in such a place of like integrity with myself. But I try my best to just live in a way that I like to look at myself in the mirror, and it's a nice place to be. I can't always say that I felt this way about myself. I think it's just been a really big work in progress. It's just weird that I guess I don't know the way that things work. Somehow I was ready for this really challenging time more than I ever was at any other point. And so I'm really grateful for that. And so fast forward to today, after this tough year, I'm really just grateful for my life, just living with my wife. We have three boys, and life is good. Life is good. There's obviously craziness going on in the world, which is so dark and so frustrating and so sad. And it's so big that I can't even really look at it much or talk about it much, especially with the stuff in Israel. It just it's impossible to wrap my head around. So there's definitely darkness, but I'm just so grateful for my place in life right now. I moved my office to Westwood, which is really great, other than like the little kind of like elevated anti-Semitism that's just kind of like floating around the UCLA campus and just weird stuff that pops up and graffiti with like anti-Jewish or anti-Israel stuff. It's a great neighborhood. I love Westwood. It's a weird thing. Like Westwood is where UCLA is this beautiful campus and it's in this prime area, but it needs to do some work on itself. At the same time, I'm still happy with it. I love this new office. It's really nice to just walk around and see all the action and see college life and stuff like that. So I'm super excited to be here. Really just I've known that I've wanted to come back and do some content, and I didn't really know how I was going to do it. Still don't know how I'm going to do it, but I am committed to trying. So if this was interesting to you at all, hit me up on Instagram or email. I'm always available to talk to anybody who wants to reach out about anything, life, law, content. I love talking about business strategy and like business processes. So if anybody likes to talk about that stuff, contact me. Hopefully, we'll be putting out more content. And if you have any legal issues whatsoever, contact at thesmithlawcorp.com. And you can go to our website at thesmithlawcorp.com. You can find me at my personal IG is Benjy Smith, BenjySmith. You can find us on Instagram, whatever, TikTok, all that stuff. And then I'm hopefully going to be putting out some content soon to flood your social media pages. And I'm simultaneously going to try in 2024 to reduce my use of technology in the phone and to use it really more for producing than receiving content, other than specific content that serves me. So anyway, I think that's all I have for today. I don't know really what I talked about, but this is like it was a free therapy session, and so we'll take it. All right, we will see you next time.